Forever, I have been trying to get glowing eyes in coloring books with white paper. And it's been an epic fail for years. I did not get the technique at all. And then it clicked. And I guess that's what happens when it does. So I have two pictures. These are both Mariola Buttocks pictures. It's the one that I'm working on but blown up. And I blew this one up because the eyes were so pretty. So here you have a sample of blue eyes, and I didn't work too much on these eyes because I'm going to demo one for you today. So here you have the blue eyes, and this is what a typical coloring book eye looks like, and what most beginners do their eyes like. Mariola does fantastic line work and sketching, so she's always going to have beautiful eyes. This is blue eyes, which is way different than glowing blue eyes. And I was able to do this on fairly light paper. And there was a big difference between doing this and this. Well, you can't see that. But between this and this. And I'm going to teach you how to do this. It's not hard. It just has a couple of extra steps that once you learn what those differences are, it's not even steps. It's like how to do it differently and get this look versus this look. It makes the biggest difference in anything you want to color. Imagine Halloween doing this. And technically the technique can work for other things than eyes. So we're going to do glowing eyes. So we're going to just learn how to do these neon blue eyes. You can change this over and do it to green with green, red. I mean, we all do the red eyes at Halloween on a witch or something. So I'm going to teach you how to do it and make it look convincing that it's actually glowing and not just... So I isolated the eyes, and we're going to work on it because it's easier to work this way and show you the steps. Now, over here on the top, I have the blue eye. Some of the things you have to remember when doing eyes is the eyeball itself is an eyeball. It's not white. There's very little white in the eyeball. So what you want to do is darken the edges, and you use gray. Now, of course, there can be red in it, and by treating the eyeball itself as a sphere, you're going to get a much more realistic eye. There are some structures in it that you need to remember. The eyelid is over the eyeball. There's always going to be a shadow right here. So you want to make sure that you put that shadow in. How big that shadow is up to you. It's usually not that big, but it'll create a look of realism in any eye. And I do that no matter how big the eye is in a book. I always try to include some of these aspects to give it as much of a real look as I can. Then you have the iris that is attached to the pupil. And the one thing on the pupil, a pupil is never round. And I know everybody makes that dot as a pupil. It's never a dot, ever. Pupils are always muscular. Okay, so no matter what eye you're working on, this would be more the closer the shape of a pupil. It's star-like. So you want to color it in so that it does have that. Now, there are striations in the iris. Those striations are actually muscles, and you think of them like muscle fibers. So you're always going to have some sort of striations, and that's what usually pulls the pupil in and out and of allowing light to come in. So when it's dark, your pupils open up and you see less iris. When it's light out, your eye doesn't need that much light, just like a camera shutter, and it closes, and you'll have a tiny pupil with more color in the eye where you'll see it. The waterline. When you're rendering eyes or doing eyes, you always want to put in a tiny bit of white on the waterline. Now, what I see a lot of people doing is big like lines. It's only supposed to represent glistening and gleaming from tears because your eyes are moist. So you don't need a big heavy line over there. The eyelid. Treat the eyelid as if it's a sphere or a hump. You know how you do anything that goes like this? Here is your center light. So right here is always going to be lighter, and you want to darken in as it goes around. Now, people do that with makeup all the time. They do the highlight area, which is right in the front. And then they do, you know, smoky eye or whatever into the crease. The crease is always darker because there's no light going into the crease. So you're going to have the eyelid and you'll have your crease. It's starting to look more and more realistic. Then you're going to have a bright spot. And those are your two highlights. But they don't have to be just dots. And what you can do on those is sort of a reflection in them. And both eyes usually have that in the same spot. So if the reflection is here and here, you're going to have the reflection in the same place on the second eye. And that makes a lot of sense because your light is not really spread out. It's not on opposite ends of the room. You're really talking a very small amount of space where the light is going to hit the same spot. If you don't make these identical to the second eye, your eyes as a pair are going to look wonky. So whatever you kind of draw in one, you want to draw in the other. You can also put in reflections of the eyelashes in it. And that always looks good. So this is just a quick overview on the eye. Another trick is to take a creamy white and write over the pupil. Lighten up an area. This makes it look like it's glaring and more wet than if you didn't put that in. So that's another thing you can do. And then you make sure your eye is nice, your pupil is nice and dark in your blackened areas, and everything should start to pop. In here, in this little corner of your eye where your tear duct is, it's usually like a salmon color. It's not ultra red. That's very unnatural when people use bright red in there. It's closer to a salmon. So those are some tips on getting a realistic eye. But we're not doing a realistic eye today. We're going to do one that glows from within. Bring out the evil. That's the eye that we're going to concentrate on today. And that's what I'm going to demonstrate. So now we're going to do the pissed off mermaid eye. Something in her is angry, and we're going to show it by her eyes just glowing. This effect works really well on dark paper, but our books aren't dark. We're not choosing our paper. It's a coloring book. If you're doing it on your own art, I suggest going to gray. If I had printed this on gray paper, I would have gotten a much better or different look on it, much brighter. But you can do it on white, as long as the eye itself, going around it, has a lot of dark. And you can do that with eyelashes. And I'm going to teach you another little trick in there to make it look like it's glowing. On the regular eye, I'm very careful not to bring the blue out to the eyeball. It's going to stay in the iris. When I'm doing the glowing eye, I don't want it to be completely blue. The mistake I see a lot of people thinking to do is they go way too far to the corners with the blue. You don't want to do that. We want to have the light centered and coming out of this eyeball. And for that, I'm going to start off with a regular layer of the blue. For this, I think I'm using non-photo. Yeah. Now, I'm going to avoid the already highlights just so that I don't have to work hard to bring them back to white. Which now is not a problem that we know the little magic gouache trick when it comes to highlighting. It's becomes extremely easy. So I am going to be using my gouache a little bit. You don't have to. It's just easier. So here I have a layer of the light blue. Talk to you about that shadowed area on here. For this directing of the light so that it's coming out of that iris and from the deep innards of her, like her insides are glowing and this is where the window is and it's shining through. We're going to shadow a lot more. And I'm going to take that shadow down to about 50%. Now you use a gray, I just happen to have a black, but I'm using a very light hand. It works with black, it works with gray, as long as it's very light. And I'm going to take that shadow to about 50% over that white. So the light is now going to direct from this eye. I want to round out the eyeball in the same way I would have with a regular eye. See, doing the shadow with gray is much, much easier. I'm using Gray 2 of Starjoy. You can be using Prismacolor. You can be using any gray that you choose. And in fact, it doesn't have to be blue. You could do this in green. Start out with some chartreuse yellow, and you can get the same effect. So here I'm taking this shadow to 50% of the eyeball. Just kind of like that. And yes, I did go over the white. It's okay. I'll put it back. And I'm putting that gray into the eye. Just like that. So now that's the second step. I want to take a white pencil. I'm using my Holbein White Soft. You can use whatever white you are using. And I want to do the tips. I want to get in there and get some white lashes going on the sides. This is going to be very important. You must use white. Just like that. Okay, now I have my white down. I'm all prepared for this. We're going to go back to our original blue. I'm going to go over that white. Just like that, lightly. And color up those white eyelashes with the blue. Now I'm saying to use white underneath it because it makes it brighter. It's the secret to making things glow is to have white underneath the color. So now she looks like that. A little bit different than this. Now, where I said to keep this all smooth on the edges because there were other things you could put in the eye. I went really quick, you know, like you can slightly put the blue on the edge to give it like a blurry look on the outside, and then a darker ring, which is very common in eyes. Not everybody has that, but it's something that people do have. On here, we're going to take the blue, and instead of keeping it close to the iris, we're going to take it out about 50% of the eye. Go with that into that white area. Okay, just like that. You still want a little bit of white, but you want that blue to extend. Now, on the eye, the pupil itself, we kept that pupil very dark. On a glowing eye, you're going to take your pencil and you want to put a layer of that blue over the pupil. Just like that. You don't want to eradicate it. You don't want to take the black out. You just want the blue to come on top of it. Then you take a black pencil, and you're only going to want a little bit of that black being completely black right around the center of the eye. Just a little bit, but extend that blue into that eye. Now, this is a lot of steps, but it's as soon as you do it, you're going to kind of get it where it's coming from and how the effect comes out. It's not that hard. You're going to take your white and you're going to put your white going all the way down past your waterline. Just like that. I'm even putting the blue into that shadowed area. Okay, so the whole eye is looking murky, but not. See the difference on what it looks like? It's like harder lines and harder structures. On here, you're going to blur it out. Now, your waterline. You're going to want your waterline on here a little bit lower. So, let's get this a little darker. And I'm going to take my pencil and I want to add in like a glow. Just like that. See what a difference it is? Now, when the eye is surrounding area is dark, it's going to look like this. Okay? Now, if you have a nose or structures around with your blue, not a lot. You want to make it so that it just touches little areas. So you can go on the brow. Okay? You can go on the tip of the nose, which would be down here. And you can see in this picture, I put a little bit here. Add your white in, your blue. And you have the glow, a kiss of color. If there's any hair that's coming near the eye, you're going to add the color in there too. Right in here. And then you might want to take your blue. The brighter the white, the brighter the blue, the more it's going to glow. So I have it again done on this side. I want some white in there, right at the edge. Just a kiss. Another place you could put a little bit of blue would be on the bottom lip, because the light would reflect down. Not so much on the top lip, but the bottom lip that kind of curves. Instead of a pink color in the tear duct, you can opt to do the pink, which, well, actually the salmon, for underneath, and then go over it in the blue. Okay, now I'm going to start adding in a little bit of blue underneath the eyelid. Just like that. To make it stand out, I'm going to just add some white. And then go over the white. A little bit of blue. Okay, now I want to start adding the white back into it. And I'm going to use my Tombow trick. And I'm using a Tombow clear with gouache. I'm going to add in a little line in there. We're going to cover that up in just a minute. Okay. I'm going to go over this line that I put in over here, just to brighten it up. And I'm going to go over a little bit on the eyelashes. So those are the structures of the eye that you want. And when you do it on the paper in one complete package, it'll look like that. The darker your structures, the brighter the glow. But you don't have to go black. I hope that helped, and I will see you guys in my next video. Take care. Bye-bye.